طيب اليوم راح نحكي عن مواضيع شوي فيها سبيسيفيستي من ناحيه بايوكيمستري، ممكن يكون فيها تقاطعات في كورس ما زي الفسيولوجي. راح نتكلم عن البيوكيميكال structure of the bone and the collagen structure, how they look like from the biochemical point of view. So in order to understand that, you have to go to this chapter to discuss or to just read something related to the extracellular matrix, which means that how the extracellular structure are going to be formed. And mainly, all of our cells rely on the presence of collagen. So the collagen is the major or the secret molecule that is forming the extracellular structure. That's why we will see a lot of examples of collagen disorders or collagen mutations that are related to the deficiency or bone diseases or cartilage diseases. So our objectives is to discuss the cement material that is forming our bone, اللي هو hydroxyapatite molecule, and to discuss some proteins that could be present in the bone or in the cartilage, and to discuss also the role of certain like enzymes in the formation of the bone or as markers of the bone. هذا بالنسبة للمحاضرة الأولى تبعت اليوم. محاضرة بكرة راح تكون تتعلق بالmarkers of the bone formation or deformation depending على understanding of today. So basically you are very familiar with the concept of mineralized connective tissue structure as a bone. So it's connective tissue with minerals. This is the basic component of the bone from biochemical point of view. So this table ما حدش بعت لي بالايميل صورة التيبل ايش المطلوب من هذا؟ ما هو المحاضرة بنناقش فيها اشياء، فاللي بنناقشه راح تنسأل عنه، لانه القضية مش قضية انه بدي احفظ 1 2 3 وخلص هذول بنسأل عنهم هذول بنسألش عنهم. فاين؟ فلا حدش يبعث هاي الكومنتس. So we have organic matters as well as inorganic matters. inorganic matters اللي هو المينرالز الموجوده راح نناقشها لوحدها. هلا الميجر component او the most important thing with the minerals is the organic structure. هلا organic structure means that every biological structure like the collagen or the proteins that could be found in the bone. So basically the bone itself consists of collagen as organic structure as well as non-collagen proteins. All of them are called organic structures. Okay. بس ليش مصنفينهم احنا؟ يعني ليش ما نتكلم عن البروتينز in general وبدون ما نصنفهم؟ Because the collagen is very important for the building up the texture itself outside of the osteoblast in order to form the bone. مسؤولة برضو عن networking outside of that structure. And if we know that these are the major types of collagens in the bone, اللي هو collagen type 1 and collagen type 5, we know if we have mutations in collagen type 1 specifically, we could have problem in the bone formation, as well as many other tissues. But the major one that is responsible for the bone formation is collagen type 1, which is different from the cartilage, for example. So approximately 90% of the total bone protein composed of 2 alpha 1 chain, alpha 2 chain composition that will form collagen type 1 in the bone. So this is very important from the molecular diagnostic point of view. معنى آخر إذا بدي أعمل molecular diagnosis ل bone disease, it could be related 90% to the mutation in these alpha chains. هلا كلمة alpha chains مشان تكون الأمور سهلة عندكم، الكولاجين مكون من 3 chains basically بيتحدوا مع بعض وبكونوا شيء اسمه تروب كولاجين. هلا إذا بدي أشوف الجينيتيك بيزز إلها بروح على الجينز اللي بيصنعوا هذول الchains. So we have more than one gene for these chains. That's why we have more than one type of collagen. فهذا الموضوع برتبط بمعرفتنا بهاي الكولاجين او الالفا تشينز جينيتيك بيزز اللي هي طبعا بدها ديب ستاديز اذا كان واحد متخصص بهذا الموضوع. At this level it's very enough to know that we have these chains that are responsible for the collagen type formation in the bone. While type 5 is the minor component of the bone. So basically these are the major types of the collagens that we have. هلا ال other non-collagen proteins, I don't know if you are familiar or not with a concept or structure that's known as glycosamine glycans, GAGs protein بنسميه. Okay. الجلايكوزامين glycans بيختلفوا عن الجلايكوبروتينز انه الجلايكوبروتينز عباره عن بروتين ستراكشر هيوج من ناحيه نسبه وعليه شويه كربوهيدرات فبنسميه جلايكوبروتين كبرسنتج. اوكي. هلا البروتيوجلايكانز ان جنرال من ضمنهم هدول عباره عن carbohydrates with peptides that are connecting these carbohydrate molecules. We have a little amount of protein concentration if we are talking about percentage. فالفرق بين البروتيوجلايكانز for example بالبكتيريا أو glycosamine glycan in this example is the presence of the carbohydrate concentration in high amount compared with the glycoprotein. الجلايكوبروتين مشان تكون الأمور بسيطة جدا وسهلة. It could be like بتعرفوش بالكيلو دالتون قديش يطلع الحجم، بس ممكن تتخيل انه عندك انت تقريبا 1000 امينو اسيد بهذا البوليبيبتايد. You just have a short fragment of carbohydrates, just 3, 4, 5 or branches of carbohydrate molecules. So they are very minor, but they are glycosylated hemoglobin. Okay, like اذا بتتذكروا الهيموجلوبين A1C. الهيموجلوبين A1C عباره عن بروتين كبير بس عليه glucose molecule. Just some other proteins they could have more than that. هلا الجلايكوزامين glycan we have a lot of, because they are gags, so it means that we have a lot of these proteins like hyaluronic acid, chondroitin sulfate, keratin sulfate, heparin or heparan sulfate, or all of these are classified as glycosamine glycan that you will see here as non-collagen proteins. So we have a lot of other proteins that are important for the bone formation, and they are forming something like gelatinous structure, or if you would mucus structure at certain points of the bone or other connective tissues. فالviscosity او الميوكس structure تيجي من هذول البروتينز اللي بيعملوا هذا الستركتشر. So some of them are called plasma proteins, some of them are called proteoglycans اللي حكينا عنهم زي الكوندرويتين سلفيت for example 1, 2, 3. هلا المطلوب من هذول انه نعرف مين منهم most bone specific proteins. Why we have to know that? Because they can be used as markers for the bone deformation or bone disorders. For example, this protein اللي هو chondroitin sulfate proteoglycan type 3 is bone specific protein, while this one as a spark is non-bone specific. It means that it can be expressed in other tissues. So the most bone specific one is type 3, for example, as a proteoglycan example. We have other proteins like osteocalcin, and it's also bone specific. Osteopontin, it's not bone specific compared with the others. Sialoprotein رح نحكي عنه بعد شوية. Okay, it's very important for the bone formation as well as it's a bone specific protein. It means that if you have fragments of this protein, it means that you have problem in the bone formation. BMPs بسموه اللي هم bone morphogenetic proteins. They are also very important for the bone growth, and they can be found in some other tissues. However, it cannot be used, or it's not used as a marker from the point of view of bone specific or not. But you can consider it as bone specific factor. Osteoproteogyrine protein inhibits osteogenesis or osteocalcitogenesis. It inhibits the formation of the osteoclast cells. رح نحكي عنها بعد شوي. So all of these proteins are classified to be non-collagen. So you can notice that we have a lot of other proteins that are very important for the bone formation. هلا البروتيوجلايكان حكينا عنها قبل شويه انه في عندنا core polypeptide, and you have these branches of carbohydrate molecules. So if you magnify this branch, you will see a polypeptide chain with carbohydrate branches. If you magnify carbohydrate branches, it will look like, for example, chondroitin sulfate. If you ask yourself what's the chondroitin sulfate, it's the carbohydrate branch, and actually it's modified carbohydrate molecules that are repeated in the proteoglycan structures. Again, the chemical structure, as we mentioned before, في عندنا organic components and inorganic components, and basically it is a precipitation or cement material of calcium phosphate that is going to be hydroxylated in order to form what's called crystalline hydroxyapatite molecule. Crystalline hydroxyapatite is the cement of the bone, and it's inorganic structure. Okay. هلا هذول كلهم عباره عن inorganic components as minerals, and we have also other types of minerals like sodium, magnesium, carbonate, fluoride. All of these are found in the bone structure as mineral, if you would, inorganic components of the bone. You are familiar with the story of dynamic structure of the bone. It means that it's resorbed and deposited. It means that you have cells that are responsible for the resorption and other cells that are responsible for the deposition. It means that the bone is continuously reformed or kind of degraded if you consider as a point of metabolism as degradation. It's not degradation, it's just recycling of the bone component. If you take a cross section in the bone, for example, there are two specific kinds of cells اللي هم osteoclast cells and osteocyte cells. The osteocytes basically came from the osteoblast base at the beginning. So the osteoblasts are going to form osteocyte cells if they are going to be surrounded by the cement material hydroxyapatite in order to form the bone matrix. So when the bone is going to grow, the osteoblasts are responsible for the formation of the bone components, and in the future they will become osteocytes, while the osteoclasts will stay osteoclasts, and they have different structure from the osteoblast cells. They are responsible for the degradation or resorption of the bone component. At the molecular level, simply, the osteoclasts look like the following structure. They have what's called ruffled surface in order to increase the surface area of the cell. Why the surface area is important to be high or huge when we talk about osteoclast cells? Because it has to cover certain surface area of the bone itself in order to be able to be resorbed as much as possible. Rather than having small cells, it's preferred to have one big cell. And this is the reason that we have multinucleated cell type. So the osteoclasts are multinucleated cells basically, and they came from hematopoietic cells and originally from pluripotent cells. Stem cells, if you know, they are classified to levels: pluripotent cells, progenitor cells, and many other cells. The highest level, the original one, is the pluripotent one that is found in the bone marrow. That's why it's called hematopoietic pluripotent cell or stem cell. هلا زي ما حكينا هذول البروسيسز اللي هم مشكلين الرفلد سيرفيس in order to increase the surface area that is attached to the bone in order to have high amount of resorption. And they are if you look to the surface and measure the pH at the surface of these cells, it will be very acidic, and this acidity is responsible for the demineralization. بشكل بسيط جدا. Demineralization, it means that you are removing the minerals or hydroxyapatite components. So it helps in that. So basically, it's very simple principle from the point of view of diagram. You have these osteoclasts that are eating the bone simply because there is an acidic condition at this site, and in the next few slides we will see why it's acidic condition here. And this is the multinucleated structure of the cell, and these are the osteoblast cells that will become osteocyte cells in the future. The osteoclasts are or having this is or the acidic structure or ruffled structure on the surface of the bone because we have this mechanism of inclusion of lysosomes with the ruffled surface, as well as high concentration of hydrogen ions that will be pumped to the site of the ruffled surface. And this looks like as a microenvironment. Actually, it's a huge vesicle. إذا بدك تنظر لها من ناحية structure, you will not see the similar structure in any other type of cell. إنه يكون في عندك vesicle بهذا الحجم. And this vesicle is oriented toward the surface of the bone because we have here release of the hydrogen ions as well as the enzymes that are responsible for the degradation of the bone components. So the acidity is caused because we have this kind of reaction اللي هو الكربون دايوكسيد مع الهيدروجين carbon anhydrase type 2, which is different from type 1 اللي موجود في البلد ستريم. اللي في البلد او بالسيلز مسؤول عن البفرنج سيستم carbon anhydrase type 1, and this one is type 2. Okay, they have the same function, but due to unknown reason انه هذا type 2 هو اللي موجود بالنسبه لهذول السيلز, and if you have a mutation in type 2 you will not have any problem with type 1, I mean the buffering system. Okay? There will be a problem in the bone formation rather than systematic mutation. لأنه إذا كان في mutation type 1, it means that the whole body is going to die or to be affected. While in this case, if you have problem in this enzyme اللي هو type 2, it will be related to the bone formation rather than the total body or systematic structure. So the hydrogen ions that are going to be formed in the osteoclast will be pumped by ATPase enzyme or transporter actually, because it depends on the ATP. It requires a lot of amount of energy because it will transport the hydrogen من low concentration to high concentration level, and here the action will be taken. They are hypothesizing that the lysosomal enzymes اللي هم اللايسوزايمز as well as the acidic condition will help or collaborate in order to destroy the bone components. اذا رجعنا للبون components اللي موجودين بالاصل ايش هم؟ all of these things اللي هم عباره عن بروتينز بالاضافه للمينرال سوري هي مش هاي اوكي المينرال ستراكشر. فانت في عندك شغلتين بدك تكسرهم البروتينز as well as the mineral components. كل هذول hypothesized to be reabsorbed to the cell, transported to the cell itself, and it will be recycled and transported back to the blood as well as the bicarbonate. So this is how they assume how the cells or osteoclasts are going to degrade or resorb the bone by the action of the acidic condition and lysosomal enzymes. So it's not just the acidic condition, it's the action of the enzymes as well. هلا الاوستيوبلاست بيشبهوش هم بيختلفوا عن الاوستيوكلاست انهم عباره عن mononuclear cells and they originate from what's called mesenchymal pluripotent cells, not from the hematopoietic one. هذلاك بيجوا من البون مارو، هذول بيجوا من الميزنكيمال cells اللي بالبون. They are going to be converted or they will form the osteoblast cells. In the future they will be osteocytes if they are in the bone marrow itself. Okay? They produce collagen type 1 basically. هذول مسؤولين عن إنتاج الكميات الكبيرة من collagen type 1 as well as growth factors and cytokines that are responsible for the coordination of the bone growth. And they are actually responsible for the deposition of the cement component as well اللي هو الاستيويد بيسموهم structure in the future اللي هو minerals with the proteins هذا بيسموهم osteoid structure. And alkaline phosphatase is the high active enzyme in these cells. And why alkaline phosphatase is found at high concentration or very active in these cells? Because لا alkaline phosphatase هو phosphatase شو بيعمل؟ بشيل الفوسفات من وين؟ من الاورجانيك structure. الفوسفات usually they are connected with certain proteins. So this enzyme is responsible for the release of phosphate. بيعمل كت للفوسفات بيحوله من اورجانيك الى inorganic يعني بصير ايون بمعنى اخر. طيب اذا صار ايون it will be deposited with the calcium in order to form the crystals of hydroxyapatite. So the phosphate is required for the mineralization process and alkaline phosphatase is the enzyme that is responsible for this mechanism. That's why alkaline phosphatase is golden marker for the bone formation or deformation or bone marker if you would. إذا في مشكلة بالبون usually the alkaline phosphatase will be increased. يعني اذا في كسر لا سمح الله اذا في شعر بالعظم الماركر اللي بندور عليه في البلد ستريم يكون الكالين فوسفاتيز. كيف بنعمل هذا الفحص؟ You are taking just blood samples into the lab and measure the enzyme activity. طيب في تيشوز ثانيين فيهم الكالين فوسفاتيز؟ يس. طيب كيف بدي اعمل اكسكلوجن انه هاي المشكله بالبون مش بالليفر على سبيل المثال لانه الليفر فيه الكالين فوسفاتيز. ماركرز ثانيين لمين؟ ممكن للبون بس بالعاده احنا للامانه بنستخدم مش كل الماركرز اللي شفناهم قبل شوي. They are very specific markers. مروا على الليفر ماركرز بصير عندنا شيء اسمه اكسكلوجن كرايتيريا. بقول مثلا ALT is low, gamma GT is low, other enzymes if they are all together at high level it means that the liver is the most probable organ or the affected organ. Okay, so type 1 collagen again appears to be necessary with the mineralization being first evident in the bone on the gaps between the successive molecules. It means that you need collagen in order to have mineralization core structure. We have also other proteins like acidic phosphoproteins. واحد منهم اللي هو السيال بروتين كده ذكرناه بالتيبل. And this is acting as a site for nucleation. To make it simple for you, in order to have mineralization عشان تشيل الايونز هذول اللي موجودين بالسوليوشن تعملهم deposition بدك ميكانيزم معين. هاي بسموها nucleation mechanism. ايش يعني nucleation؟ بتشكل بؤره او نواه وتبلش تراكم عليها الايونز. This nucleation requires acidic protein or at least negative background scaffold. ليش بدي negative background؟ عشان اعمل mineralization او اعمل نيوكليوس للمينراليزيشن لان المينرالز او الايونز اللي شفناهم كلهم عباره عن ايش؟ positive. الكالسيوم والفوسفات they are positive. So who is going to provide this؟ اللي هو CL protein. So CL protein are acidic proteins, acid phosphoproteins. And they are working as a scaffold. Scaffold احنا بنسميها قاعده بيس عشان تبني عليها. In order to have nucleation, نواه للmineralization. Because acidic protein means that you have acidic amino acids. They are negatively charged. and that's how the nucleation process is going to be formed. So these acidic amino acids, or acidic proteins actually, or Cialis proteins specifically, they have polyaspartic acid or polyglutamic acid stretches, which is very strange in the proteins. بالعاده ما بنلاقيش احنا مثلا polyacidic او if you would repeated amino acids in the same protein. اذا في repeated amino acids باي بروتين it has to click in your mind انه في شيء. اوكي بالعاده ما فيش تكرار للامينو اسيدز الا اذا في فانكشن معين. بهذول البروتينات على سبيل المثال الوظيفه لهذول البولي اسيد امينو اسيدز to have negative scaffold in order to have nucleation or precipitation of the positive ions or minerals. Certain proteoglycans and glycoproteins can act. Actually كلمة can معناها انه شو الوظيفة الأساسية تبعتهم, but some of them are responsible for the inhibition of nucleation. Why is that? ليش الجلايكوبروتينز أو proteoglycans إذا كانوا كثار أو زاد الكونسنتريشن تبعهم they inhibit nucleation, covering covering of the scaffold protein أو الCL protein that will prevent the precipitation of these ions or minerals on the protein itself. هلا كلنا بنعرف اكيد بتعرفوا بالفسيولوجي النسب مختلفه حسب المدرسه انه like 5% of the compact bone is renewed annually while 20% of the trabecular bone is going to be replaced. هلا انا بهتمش بالارقام كثير لانه الرينج هاي واعتقد بالفسيولوجي they discuss much more details. هلا من ناحيه hormonal control we have this hormonal system that is controlling the osteoclast as well as osteoblasts. Basically the corticosteroids are inhibiting osteoblast cells while الكالسيتونين والestrogens are going to inhibit the osteoblast cells. Okay, and that's osteoclast cells, and that's why at the premenopausal, if you would, estrogens are very effective against the osteoclasts. After the menopause, we will have osteoporosis. So you have to think in this way or in this logic. So in the females, post-menopause period, it means that you have lower concentration of estrogens. So the estrogens are not anymore available to inhibit the osteoclast. That's why they are going to be more active. As well as the estrogens, sometimes or some papers are describing them as activators of osteoblasts. So you're using both arms, اللي هو activating of the osteoblasts as well as inhibition of the osteoclasts اللي هي مسؤولة عن أكل العظام وتكوين العظام بلغة بسيطة جدا. That's why we have post-menopause osteoporosis, if you would. And it's a very complicated process to understand the mechanism of the estrogen because the parathyroid hormone as well has another function, because the parathyroid hormones and the dihydroxycalciferol or cholecalciferol are responsible for the activation of two types of cells. And this is how they hypothesize the action. The secretion of the PTH hormone is responsible for the activation of the osteoblast cells. And these osteoblasts are also responsible for the activation of the osteoclast. So it looks like that we have kind of coordination between the osteoblast formation as well as osteoclast formation, because the body is looking for homeostasis, and there are a lot of molecular mechanism behind this. How the osteoblasts are going to activate the osteoclast cells. So there is a molecular mechanism behind this. At the cellular level, there is kind of signaling, and you have to study these examples actually, because we have a lot of examples that describe the connection between the osteoblast and osteoclast. So at the end of the day, you have to coordinate the percentage or the amount of the osteoblast and osteoclast in the individual. That's why at the post-menopause, we have this imbalance mechanism, because the osteoclast function is going to be increased on the account of or according to the relative amount of the osteoblast cells. And the big advice is to study what's called rank L بسموه capital. I think you are familiar with this mechanism. There are a lot of videos describing the action of this. هلا بدي ركز شوي على الناحية الجينيتكس, لأنه I think you are going to discuss some of these and many other details in the physiology, how the bone formation is going to, I hope انه يكون هذا اللي بصير. We have these kinds of diseases that are related to dysfunction or, if you would, mutations in certain genes. ايش المهم منهم؟ بدي ابلش بالاخر عكس المعتاد. ليش؟ لأن أنا بيهمني هدول أكثر من غيرهم، لأنه dwarfism you are familiar with dwarfism how it happens. Okay. شو سببه؟ deficiency of vitamin D and rickets, for example, osteomalacia. We have mutations in some genes, but most commonly it's related with the deficiency of vitamin D or calcium and many other things. هلا هذول هم مهمين بالنسبه لي، وزي ما حكيت بدي ابلش من الاخر. هلا we have a disease that's called achondroplasia، وما بعرف اذا حكينا هذا البرنسبل اللي هو الأومم نمبر. شو يعني أومم؟ لكل ديزيز اذا بتشوف هذا اللي بين قوسين OMIM، هذا اسمه اكسجين نمبر. اكسجين نمبر اللي هو رقم الوصول. رقم الوصول هذا وين؟ بالداتا بيز في قواعد بيانات. هذا خاص في الان سي بي اي، بسموه الان سي بي اي اللي هو منبثق عن شيء اسمه ان اي اتش. نرتب المعلومات. ناشونال انستيتيوت اوف هيلث بامريكا عاملين ويب سايت فيه داتا بيز لاشياء كثيره اللي هو متعلقه بالهيومن ديزيز مينلي والهيومن جينوم از ويل از ماني اذر جينومز. هلا في عندهم موقع اسمه ان سي بي اي تابع لهم. لو كتبت ان سي بي اي او ان اي اتش يو ويل ريتش الان سي بي اي. ورحت كتبت هذا الرقم اللي هو الأومم، في خانه له مكتوب أومم ونقطتين فوق بعض، وفي رقم. مجرد ما حطيت هذا الرقم it will take you directly to this disease. So for each kind of disease or gene or target thing you have OMM number. Okay, so this OMM number is specific for this kind of disease, and this disease is associated with the mutation in the FGFR receptor type 3, fibroblast growth factor receptor. Okay, fibroblast growth receptor type 3. A mutation in this gene will cause this kind of either actually cartilage disease, as a disease that is related to the dysfunction of the cartilage formation. And we have also another mutation in FGFR type 2 which will be associated with the Jackson's-Wells disease. Pfeiffer syndrome is also associated with the mutation in the gene that is encoding fibroblast growth factor type 1. هلا الكولاجينز mutations are related to the osteoporosis, for example, osteoarthritis, and this specific type of chondroplasia. These are related to the collagen mutations. So the bone and cartilage deformities or diseases either related to the vitamin D or collagen deformation or mutations in the FGFR receptors. And we will discuss this at the end of the chapter. I think بالبيوكيمستري ناقشنا شيء اسمه osteogenesis imperfecta. Just to have this specific example، إنه هو مقسم إلى 4 أنواع حسب السيفيريتي. If you take a look to these cases of osteogenesis imperfecta, this is type 1, type 4, for example, type 3. So according to the severity, they have been classified, and 90% is related to the deficiency or mutation in collagen type 1, alpha chain 1, alpha chain 2. معنى اخر انه الميوتيشن في كولاجين تايب 1. هلا A1 A2 اللي هو الالفا تشين، مين منهم اللي فيها ميوتيشن؟ Until today we have more than 100 mutations in these chains. معناها انه في عندي لسه 10% من الاوستيوجينيسيس امبيرفكتا is related to something else. هذول 10% عشان نروح نبحبش ندور فيهم انه وين المشكله بالضبط. هل هي بالكولاجينز؟ الكولاجينز are normal. So there is something else related to the osteogenesis imperfecta rather than the collagen. It could be a certain enzyme that is responsible for maybe mineralization or something else. Okay, the most frequent type of mutation اللي بسبب مشكلة عظيمة بالنسبة للألفا تشينز إنه نروح بنبدل الجلايسين with any other bulky amino acid. For example, it could be tryptophan or something huge that is different from the glycine. هلا الجلايسين هو السيكريت بالألفا تشين structure لأنه هو عنده السايد تشين عبارة عن هيدروجين. To allow helical structure. It's not helical structure, but it's called alpha chain structure. في فرق بين alpha chain و alpha helix. شوي بدي احكي عن البيوكيمستري. الالفا هيليكس انه في عندك helical structure of the protein. الالفا chain فيها روتيشن خفيف مش بدون بركه. اوكي اللي بسبب هذا الانحناء بالنسبه للالفا chain بالعاده مستقيمه. بس بهذا الستركتشر they have this kind of rotation. هذا الروتيشن بيخلي انه الفا ثانيه تيجي معها روتيشن ثاني، اوكي، اللي هو تبع جدول صغير اذا بدك. الجلايسين لانه عنده سايد تشين صغيره فبسمح له انه التشين مع التشين الثاني تعمل هذا الجدله احنا بنسميها. So any change in that amino acid cause a problem in the collagen structure, and that's why it's the most frequent or severe kind of mutation that's related to the collagen. What's going to happen to the collagen if it's deformed or if it has abnormal sequence mutation? شو اللي بصير؟ It will be degraded, and this is called pro-collagen suicide. The pro-collagen suicide, it means that the collagen is not good, not wild type, it has a mutation. That's why the body will start to destruct this kind of collagen. And as a symptom, we have what's called blue sclera in these individuals. It's very common in the structures with, or in the individuals with the osteogenesis imperfecta. And these are the phenotypes, if you would, of the osteogenesis imperfecta, depending on the level of the disease or the type of the disease itself. Osteoporosis, it means that you have increased bone density due to the deficiency of the function of these cells. Why is that? Why it could have such kind of disease? Most of the time it's related to the deficiency in the enzyme اللي هو الكربونيك anhydrase enzyme أو carbonic dehydratase enzyme الاسمين اللي هو type 2 specifically. Okay? If you have a deficiency in this enzyme, it will not afford the acidic condition or acidic behavior at this microenvironment احنا بنسميها in order to increase the activity or to have optimum activity of the lysosomal enzyme. اللايسوسومال enzymes اللايسوزايمز اللي بيجوا من هون عشان يشتغلوا they need acidic condition. If the acidic condition is not available, they are not going to work at that site. إذا فيش working للأوستيوكلاست, so you will have what's called marble bone disease. The bone is going to be marble. Okay, solid. There is no osteoclast function. ما فيش عندنا resorption of the bone. Okay. هلا الستوري of the estrogen, they found that in the estrogens and cytokine interleukin type 1, type 6 as examples actually are responsible for the development of osteoporosis. Osteoporosis means that the bone is going to be more sensitive for fractures due to the loss of the spongy structure or native structure of the bone. That's why these individuals are going to be fragile, or they will have fragile bones, and this condition is known as osteoporosis condition. The cartilage, just to visit the cartilage structure from the biochemical point of view, we have different types of cartilage. One of them is called hyaline cartilage, the other one is called elastic cartilage or fibroelastic cartilage, and mainly the cartilage is rich with collagen type. The major collagen in the cartilage is type 2. Okay. هلا هذا النوع فيه زياده بالكولاجين type 1, but basically the cartilage itself rich with type 2. Yeah. Okay. هلا هذول self reading لانه مثلا بيحكي لك ان الانترلوكينز والtumor necrosis factor alpha stimulates production of the proteases that are responsible for the degradation of that cartilage, وهذا بربطوه ب شيء متعلق بالديسك degenerative disorders. Disc degenerative disorders, it means that the cartilage in the disc area is going to be degraded because of the action of these molecules, or these molecules actually activating the function of the proteases. If you have a lot of protease activity, they are going to destroy the collagen at that area, and they are connecting certain mutations in these genes or the proteases with the cartilage diseases, and one of them is اللي هو ما يسمى بالديسك degenerative disorder. So again, we have mainly collagen type 2 that is responsible for the formation of the cartilage, and we have many other network in cartilage, other types. أنا بهتم بس بالميجر one. Okay. And we have protoglycans, and mainly we have what's called aggrecan structure, the most important cartilage component as organic structure, as an organic structure, مش inorganic. Organic structure means that it has protein structure or biological structure. So the aggrecan structure is one of the most important protein that are forming the collagen, and this example is taken from the bovine nasal cartilage, not a human one. Okay, but they are very similar. So the diagram of the aggrecan structure, in order to be part of the cartilage, it consists of this polypeptide, which is the hyaluronic acid, as well as this core structure that is rich with branches of carbohydrate molecules, وهذا بشكل بروتوجلايكان اللي حكينا عنه قبل شوي. And here we have what's called hyaluronate binding site and linker proteins. So all of this are forming what's called aggrecan structure or aggrecan protein, that is basic structure when we talk about collagens. And this is a very specific one. الكولاجين الموجود في النيزل cartilage of the bovine. هلا بدي احكي شوي molecular again، يمكن ذكرناه بالتيبل السابق، اللي هو chondroplasias diseases as well as the mutations in certain genes like type 2 collagen or FGFR genes. We have diseases that are classified to be or known as chondrodysplasias. It means that there is a deformity in the cartilage formation. Most of them are related to the mutation in collagen type 2, because type 2 or collagen type 2 is the major one in these structures, the whole collagen. And we have another example of what's called Stickler syndrome, about degeneration of the joint cartilage, as well as vitreous body of the eye, also related to the deficiency in the formation of the collagen and consequently in the cartilage structure. And we have other types of this chondrodysplasia, like what's called achondroplasia, and it's very common, that will cause or associated with what's called short limb dwarfism. And the best example to discuss every time is Michael Ian. He's a physician, and he got 20 rejection letters from medical schools because of his phenotype. الشكل تبعه he's normal، بس عنده مشكلة انه عنده achondroplasia، عنده مشكلة بانه البون او الكارتلج is early converted to bone، وبالتالي فيش عنده فرصة انه يصير في عنده growth. Okay, and he's a pediatrician of orthopedic surgeon بنفس الديزيز اللي عنده. Okay, something related to that. Of Johns Hopkins, which is one of the best medical centers in the world. Okay, and the disease is developed because he is not guilty. He did not anything, because unless he has this kind of mutation that will cause achondroplasia development. He has FGFR mutation that is related to the formation of the cartilage or bone, and that's why he has this kind of condition. Condition انا بحب استخدمها بالاشياء اللي فيها humanity اكثر، ما نحكيش disease، ما نحكيش patient بالعاده، انا بحب استخدم كلمه individual اذا لاحظت هذا الكلام، او condition، لانه it's not related to the person himself. Okay, هذا ملخص للاشياء اللي حكينا عنها اليوم بمحاضرتنا. Just to know what we have to know about this lecture. Thank you for listening. See you tomorrow, inshallah.